Welcome to this explainer. Okay, let's dive right in. Because what we're exploring today completely shifts the paradigm of how we think about wealth. We're going to build your new financial operating system together, step by step. You see, it turns out that financial success, it isn't really a hard science. It's not about complex math or, having a genius level IQ. It's almost entirely about behavior. And to see just how true that is, let's look at someone who completely flipped the traditional script on wealth. Take Ronald Read. Now, he wasn't a Wall Street banker or some flashy tech billionaire. He was literally a gas station attendant and a janitor in Vermont. Over the entire course of his life, he never earned more than $30,000 a year. He didn't have an economics degree, he definitely wasn't doing high-frequency day trading, and he certainly wasn't getting insider tips on the next big tech stock. Yet, when he passed away in 2014, he left behind an absolute massive $8 million fortune. So how did he do it? Well, because over 60 years, he's simply mastered a few basic, frankly kind of boring, but incredibly powerful behavioral habits.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the fascinating contrast. On one hand, we've got academic intelligence, highly educated people, Harvard MBAs pulling in massive salaries, who still end up totally bankrupt just because they can't manage their own greed. On the other hand, we have Ronald Read and his behavioral competence. It brilliantly highlights that money is a behavioral puzzle, right? Not an intelligence test. But before we get into the exact habits Ronald used, we have to look at why adopting this mindset isn't just a nice idea, it's absolutely crucial for your financial survival right now.
Because if you've been feeling financially stuck, stressed out, or like you're just running on a treadmill and getting absolutely nowhere, well, you aren't imagining things. Looking at wage growth across Europe from 1990 to 2020, while countries like Germany and France saw their wages grow by over 30%, in Italy, wages actually shrank by 2.9%. Let that sink in for a second. The macroeconomic system is actively working against you. The worker is being left completely alone to figure out how to generate personal economic value. And the ripple effects of this? They are genuinely alarming. This is exactly what sociologists call the democratization of poverty. Poverty just doesn't have a single, easily identifiable face anymore. It hits people who have jobs. 16.5% of the working class lives in absolute poverty. It hits the traditionally wealthy northern regions, where poverty literally doubled from 500,000 to 1 million people in just 10 years. It hits 1.3 million minors. The safety nets are just gone. In a landscape this fragile, improvising with your money is exactly like driving a high-speed car without any brakes. You just cannot afford to guess. You need a system that works, totally regardless of your income.
And that brings us to your new financial operating system. Here are the 4 sequential rules we're unpacking today. 1. Earn more. 2. Pay yourself first. 3. Spend intentionally. And 4. Make money work. Let's jump straight into the foundation.
Rule number 1, earn more. But listen, even as you actively work to increase your income, there is a massive hidden trap waiting for you: hedonic adaptation. This is basically the ultimate psychological treadmill. It happens when your lifestyle and your expectations rise perfectly in parallel with your income. You can start making significantly more money and still barely make it to the end of the month. Why? Because our ego gets involved. We want the expensive clothes, we want to feel like we've made it. But making more money is completely useless if your ego just forces you to spend every single extra dime immediately.
Which leads us perfectly to this thought. Financial happiness is a simple equation: results minus expectations. It's so true, right? You can drive your results, meaning your income, as high as you possibly want. But if your expectations and desires keep pace or grow even faster, you are always going to feel poor. Keeping your ambition and your ego in check is just as important, maybe even more important, than simply increasing your salary.
Which brings us to rule number 2. Pay yourself first.
Earning money and actually keeping money are 2 totally different talents. To keep it, you want to start with a habit of taking just 10% of your income. Seriously, don't start at 30% and overwhelm yourself. Start at 10% just to build the muscle. And you divide that 10% perfectly into 2 specific containers. First, your emergency fund. This is your highly liquid, immediate cash to act as your protective shield. Second, your investments for long-term growth. Think of this as your aggressive sword. So the crucial point is, what if you completely lack the motivation to save that 10%? Well, you use what's called the anti-goal logic. Basically, stop saving for a dream house or a fancy trip to Japan. Save to avoid a nightmare. Save so you don't end up 40 years old, freshly fired, and sleeping on your mom's couch. Save so you aren't forced to take a terrible abusive job just because your bank account is at zero and rent is due in 5 days. Human psychology is hardwired to run away from pain far, far more aggressively than it chases pleasure. So use that fear as your most powerful fuel. And as you build this habit, remember this brilliant insight from James Clear. Every single action is a vote for the type of person you want to become. Think about it. If you skip a dinner out to put 50 euros into your emergency fund, you really shouldn't view it as a sacrifice. You're casting a silent vote. You are declaring your identity. You're voting to become someone who actually protects their own future. It's not about just pretending to be good with money. It's about slowly becoming the person who truly is.
All right, rule number 3, spend intentionally.
We really need to completely destroy the illusion of social media wealth. Spending money just to show other people how much money you have is the absolute fastest way to stay poor. And to expose the truth behind this illusion, just look at this staggering number, 39%. In Italy alone, 39% of car buyers are purchasing vehicles on installment plans, and nearly 2 million people admitted to buying a car far beyond their actual needs. This right here is the ego gap. It's not actual wealth. It's a terrifying trap of debt, lower savings, and way higher anxiety, all just to impress a bunch of strangers. Let me tell you a quick story about Carmen. She's a 40-year-old project manager who completely transformed her finances. Now, she wasn't an extreme spender, but she lived completely on autopilot, buying rounds of drinks, random gifts, small things that constantly drained her account. She had zero emergency fund. But the moment she started tracking her money and stopped that automatic spending, everything changed. Step 1, she renegotiated her mortgage and saved 130 euros a month. Step 2, she used that exact money to start an accumulation plan, investing 100 euros a month. Step 3, she used her existing skills to launch a mini course and created a brand new income stream. The takeaway? She found financial peace not by getting a massive raise initially, but by stopping those automatic habits and spending with deep intention. And finally, rule number 4, make money work. Now, once you master those first 3 rules and reach this stage, you realize something profound. True wealth is actually unseen. It's the cars you didn't buy. It's the expensive watches you completely ignored. It's the first-class upgrades you declined. Wealth is simply the unspent income sitting in an account that gives you the absolute freedom to wake up in the morning and dictate your own day. It's having the power to look a terrible boss right in the eye and say no because you have the financial runway to just walk away. That unseen wealth, that is pure freedom. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact mechanism to achieve that freedom: compound interest. Think of it like a financial glaciation. You absolutely do not need massive force, and you definitely don't need to chase the latest miraculous crypto trend. What you need is small, consistent growth that accumulates over decades to produce results that completely defy logic. You just have to stay in the market, never sell in a panic, and literally let time do the heavy lifting for you. Okay. Prepare to have your mind blown. This is one of the most surprising statistics in all of finance. Warren Buffett is famous for his massive wealth, at one point measured at $84.5 billion. But get this, 96% of that wealth was accumulated after his 65th birthday. If Buffett had started investing at 30 and simply retired and stopped at 60, his net worth would be 99.9% lower. No way, right? His ultimate secret weapon wasn't just his skill at picking stocks. It was the sheer amount of time he left his money in the market to compound. Time is, without a doubt, your greatest multiplier of wealth. So, we arrive at the ultimate question to end this explainer. Are you ready to buy your time? Because financial independence, as we've seen today, has very little to do with the exact amount on your paycheck, and absolutely everything to do with the behavioral system you use to manage it. Earn more, pay yourself first, spend intentionally, and make your money work. The system is simple though, never easy. Are you ready to implement it and finally buy back your life? Think about it. We'll catch you next time.